Hey everybody, Guilty here, and today I'm bringing you a update to my FF7 Remake weapon modding tutorial that I published back in February. I'm going to focus on emissions. What do you need to do if you want to mod a weapon into FF7 Remake that uses emissions? Or what do you want to do if you have a mod and you want to add emissions to it? This is something that proved pretty difficult for me and some others to understand early on, but I think now I'm in a place where I grasp and understand the subject enough to where I can now teach the rest of y'all how to do it and watch the kinds of magic you all can, I want to see some of the shit y'all can do, So the example we're going to go with today is my Stream Saber mod. And I have a replacement mod for each of Cloud's weapons. And unfortunately, not all of the replacement swords have working emission. And I really wasn't sure why for a while, but now I think I know how to fix it. So I've brought y'all along to sort of stand over my shoulder and watch me work. And hopefully we can, fix it together. So here we go. So we're gonna open my Stream Saber project file. Now this is a weapon brought in from EverCrisis. EverCrisis mods are pretty easy to work with. All you need to do is get the Unity uAssetEditor program, and if you have the access to the Unity files, then you can use uAssetEditor to extract and dump these models. And when the models are dumped, well, the textures will be dumped with them. So with EverCrisis mods, I think they're pretty easy. With uAssetEditor, as long as you have access to those files, you open up the asset in the program, you dump it, and along with the model itself as an FBX, it will also dump the textures, and it will dump the textures with whatever name is pre-programmed in. And the way these textures are named really goes a long way in telling you what they are used for. This map right here, I'm gonna go ahead and enlarge it, and then we're gonna freaking lose our way with it, aren't we? Yep. So this map right here, this is obviously our color map, our diffuse map, or our albedo map. I want to say all those terms are synonymous and interchangeable, excuse me. I go with albedo because I want to say that's what these A's stand for: albedo, albedo, albedo. And the reason that there are 3 A's here is because each of them represent a color channel or a layer in the RGB sort of setup, right? So this is R, this is G, and this is B. And this X over here stands for the alpha layer. So this is telling me, since they're all labeled the same, they're all AAA, that the RGB layers, they do not function independently of each other. They are actually interdependent. The RGB layers together makes this map what it is. So you are not supposed to separate the channels into anything for it to, serve some sort of special function or anything. X, initially I attributed X to meaning nothing. Usually when you see X, there is just a white alpha layer there. There is no data, but that can be misleading, especially when you talk about normal maps, and we will get to that later. So here's our color map. You have R, G, and B. And yes, there are subtle differences between them, but each of these channels, each of these layers, they all combine to make the color map. As I mentioned, they do not serve an independent purpose. They all work together to make the map what it is. They're kind of like a Megazord in that respect. And the alpha channel, there's no data here, there's nothing here. Now in other models, you might come across a texture that is AAAT, and the T in that context stands for transparency. Like this one up here, for instance, you would have to create from that T channel, from the alpha layer, a separate alpha map for Unreal Engine to read in order for the transparency to render properly in-game. And we can talk about that another time, especially if that becomes a roadblock or a hindrance for anybody. I go out of my way to talk about RGB and the different channels and everything because I want to talk about this texture, which I know I hit on this already in the last video, but MROE, metallic, roughness, occlusion, and emission. So this is the MRO map for the Stream Saber, and it is quite a colorful mess. As I mentioned, the MRO, those letters, they correlate to the different channels, different RGBA channels. MRO, M is the metallic, that lines up with the red, so this is your metallic channel. The R, the roughness, is your green channel, it's this right here. The blue is your occlusion. You could do a Control A or take your marquee tool and drag it over here. You could copy and paste this on another canvas, save it as your occlusion texture, and there you go. This by itself is its own map for Unreal Engine. After you address your occlusion map, you would then move on to this. This is your emission texture. We are going to take this, we're going to copy it, and we're going to move it to our blue channel. And we're going to delete the alpha. In Unreal Engine, there is no MRO map. That's a Unity thing. In Unreal, they use what's called a MRV map. Metallic, roughness, and variant. For the longest time, I thought variant was, I don't know, specularity or something along those lines. Variant is referencing emission to the emit light type uAsset property. And the reason we took the emission from, the alpha layer here and moved it to blue is because in this V channel, remember now we're talking about Unreal, MRV, this channel functions as a sort of mask. And everything that is black is just sort of blocking off, and everything that is white is what is going to let our emission pass through. Now, this doesn't have any bearing on the colors that you see here, okay? The green just indicates roughness, the red and the orange indicates sheen and metallicity, if that's even a word. But this is incredibly important if you want your emission to work. If this were completely black, which is what I had been doing to get my metallic and roughness maps to look the way I wanted them to look, then you are in essence masking off and blocking off all the sources of your emission. Now let's look at this, and this here, and then let's flash back to our color map, and you'll see that one of them was here, and then the other three are down here. Now these are the two materia slots that are on the face of the sword, and those are the areas that are supposed to emit. As you can see, they're the same color as the metal around them. This color texture is still going to apply to the mesh, and it's going to be the same color as the rest of the metal around it. This map is still going to allow light to emit from these areas, and it is with the emissive material that we're going to dictate the power of the light and the color of the light. This is the biggest discovery that I've made when it comes to making weapon mods, when it comes to my workflow. This is incredibly important. So once you move your emission map to blue, click back here. This is my metallic and roughness map. This is it right here. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to save as a TGA. So after you have finished making your MRV map, now you need to make your emission map. Similar to how I suggested making your occlusion map, you would select your emission map, select all, copy, and then paste. But there is one catch. You cannot just save your emission map as a TGA like you did your normal or your MRV. Emission maps must be saved as an EXR file. And the only way you can do that is if you change the image mode to 32 bits per channel. So you go to image, mode, 32 bits, then you go to file, save as, and at save as type, go to open EXR. Compression none, okay. And there we go. So now that we have this set up, I'm going to export it real fast. And I use the PSK PSA add-on. I actually don't prefer uAsset because the few times I used it, it, for whatever reason, would switch my mode from XYZ Euler to this WXYZ thing here. And having a W and applying that scale and exporting with that scale, I would have like supernova level elemental effects if I ever link that materia to that weapon. So I had more problems using the uAsset add-on than I did PSK PSA. So this is the one that I use. However, there is one caveat that I've noticed, and it was something that I didn't pick up on for a while. I have to click export tangent if I want my normals, such as these sharp edges and other things, to keep and carry out of Blender and into Unreal Engine and ultimately into 7 Remake. My first imports of this weapon specifically, the blade was rounded. It did not look great. It wasn't a blade. It was not even a sword. It wasn't sharp. I could not for the life of me understand it. And it was because the normal information was just straight up being dropped. The edge information, the lines, when you go from this line here to this line here, that information was just being lost. If you want to keep your sharp edges, is make sure export tangent is selected. Go back into object mode. We're going to select everything. This includes our armature and our mesh. Save it right quick. For tangent, face smoothing, we're going to export as FBX. And we're going to open Unreal. With Unreal Engine open, I'm going to locate my Stream Saver Armature FBX and drag it in here. And though you check that box on exporting your tangents out of Blender, you also need to make sure that import normals and tangents is selected in Unreal. And that's just right here in the middle, normal import method. Hit this drop down, import normals and tangents. That should be the only thing that you need to do. Everything else should already be checked and selected. We're gonna hit import all and delete these textures that we don't need. Take our armature, our physics asset, and our skeleton, drag that into model. Take our materials, drag them into material, and then cook. Onto our tools, we have our 7R mesh importer here. 7R input uexp file. I'm going to target the Buster Sword because it has the most flexibility as far as I'm concerned. Extract, content, game contents, character, weapon, Buster Sword, model, 00. Select 418 input uexp file. This is my mod. I have my Unreal project folder in the same location as my 7 Remake shit. So we're gonna go there. My project is named My Mods, so I'm gonna go in there. Saved, cooked, Windows No Editor, My Mods, And the rest of this should look familiar. Content, game contents, character, weapon, Buster Sword, model, stream, Sabaw. Open. The output path, I'm going to target Stream Saver. Well, I'm going to rename this actually. I'm going to target this Nailbat folder because one of the problems I was having was that my Nailbat replacement mods were not colliding properly. And that's because I was porting in a model that was Buster Sword sized, but it was still using the Nailbat skeleton. So yeah, of course the collisions were gonna fucking work. We're gonna click into here, model, we want it to go there. Inject, no problemo. Exit out of that. Tools, texture injector. Alright, texture injector now. So because I have a bunch of mods already, I could just more or less cannibalize the same assets from those mods over and over and over again, as opposed to going into my actual 7 Remake dump and using those assets. Instead, I think I'll try to do it the legit way. So I'm going to go in here to Buster Sword. Here's the C map. Let's find my texture file. Body CTGA. And then our output folder. Okay. And then M is next. We're going to find our body MTGA. Output still the same. N, which is our normal. Same spot. O. There's that. Inject. So that leaves our emission texture. Now we have a few things to do before we can inject our emission texture into a uAsset. So we saved it as an EXR in Photoshop. Well, we can't just inject an EXR, we have to convert it into a DDS. And in order to convert our EXR into a DDS, we need a special tool. That tool is called Compressonator. I've tried saving my emission textures directly in Photoshop as this particular DDS type, and it would not take, the injector tool would not process it. So for the time being, you must use Compressonator. And the reason is you have to convert your EXR into a BC6H because the game is going to read it, I guess, as a sort of HDRI. Sort of the same format that the background, or rather the backdrop pictures are rendered in. Like when you're in Sector 7, you look at the main pillar and Midgar. That is a HDRI, more or less. It is a static image, but it emits light, like an HDRI that you would import into a Blender project, for instance. So you would take your EXR and you would drag it into the Project Explorer window up here. And there it is. Double click to open it. You have that here. And you would double click on Add Destination Settings. Here's the name of the file. This is the location where it would save. You go to Format. Change the format to BC6H. I have seen nothing of consequence when it comes to changing image quality. It probably isn't that hard to imagine why or why not, considering the types of images that we're dealing with. Change it to 0.5 if you want. Leave it alone. It probably doesn't matter. Save it. You have to click on the name here and then click Process. It's going to process the image. This is the location where it was saved. And now you have your emission map as a DDS. Back in your injector tool, what you need to do next is find an emissive texture. And it has to be in the texture folder. It has to be a body underscore EH. What we're gonna experiment with here is we're gonna try to find Yuffie, and we're going to grab her EH texture right here, WE0005, her shuriken, WE0005 underscore 00, body EH. We're gonna open that, and this is the folder where that was saved. We're gonna click on that, and then we're gonna save it here, and we're gonna see what happens. And I can't believe it worked. I'm pretty surprised that that worked. Like I said, I've been cannibalizing my own assets over and over and over, that I kind of forgot how I created an EH texture in the first place. But we're gonna see when we do the asset editor, we're gonna make sure that doing it this way actually will work. We're gonna operate under that condition for the moment and say that we're done with the texture injector. We're gonna go to uAssetEditor. We're gonna open that up real fast, because now we need to adjust our paths. We're gonna drag that over into uAssetEditor, and this is the pathing that we are telling the game, hey, you're gonna go here, and this is where you're going to pull everything that we made. All this here, game contents, character weapon, WE0000 underscore 00 underscore cloud underscore buster sword, model, WE0000 underscore 00. That is that right here, line 3. And then right here, lines 1 and 2, these are the materials. We have 00 body and 00 materia. We're not messing with materia, so we're gonna leave that alone. And we're not renaming the body either, so that's fine. I'm not renaming the shadows, the physics, or the skeleton, so that's good. You just want to make sure that everything is named the same as you have it in your asset. And then you're going to want to scroll all the way down to this. Here's the name of your model, and then here are your materials listed in alphabetical order. Body, capsule, shadow, emissive, materia, physics, asset, and skeleton. So if all of these names match how they are written in here, in your Explorer, then you're good to go. All right, so I grabbed a material from one of my other Stream Saber mods. I know this will work because it was clearly grabbed from an object that supported an object with emission. And you can tell by this line right here, number 6, material instance. Standard emissive, dynamic emissive. You need this material instance line because it also has this material emissive lighting type, this emit light type scatter. It has the same thing right here. It has multiple references to emission in this material. So just like how we grabbed the EH texture from Yuffie, we probably could grab a material from her same folder. So we're gonna find Yuffie again. We're gonna go to Shuriken, here's material. And here is Yuffie's body material for her Shuriken. We're gonna drag this in here. And sure enough, it's probably where I got it. Body, body C, body EH, body M, body N, body O. Dynamic emissive. And here are the other references to emission. So this is perfect. All right, so in this material, we dragged it into uAssetEditor. We need to make sure that everything is named properly. So here's our body material. Yes, it's right. I know that my textures are named the same, just like this. And it's like these are the opening arguments and our closing arguments are here at the bottom. Are all of our names the same? Indeed they are. We didn't change anything, so there's nothing to save. If we did, we would click save, and then we move on to the next. Our textures, drag C over, and we're gonna make sure that the pathing is correct. Because we used the Buster Sword textures specifically, that path is already sort of built in, so we don't need to change anything up here. So we should be good to go for all of these, really. The only variable will be when we get to our EH. And sure enough, because we used Eufy's EH as our reference, it borrowed her file pathing. So we're going to correct it, copying, pasting, and then changing this. It's not WE5, it's going to be WE0. Body EH, the same thing down here. And then if you're still in this field, the program will consider that you're still editing it. So if you try to save it while you're in here, it will not save this. You need to click out of it, and then it will save whatever you typed in here. So be sure to double check your work. Make sure that the file itself is also renamed. Because remember, we used Eufy's EH material, uAsset, for this, so it also adopted the file name. So textures are good, the model's good, the material's good. There's one last thing that we need to do, and this, unfortunately, you can't really do yourself. Not unless you have a dump of the PS4 version of 7 Remake. In the last video, I briefly mentioned uAssetGUI. I don't think I touched on it again after that, though. The thing about uAssetGUI is that the PC version of 7 Remake will not work with it. That's what uAssetEditor is for. And even then, uAssetEditor is pretty limited by comparison. You have to have some sort of additional map or something in order for uAssetGUI to support a game that uses an unconventional Unreal Engine version, like the PC version of 7 Remake, and that just has not happened yet. But the PlayStation 4 version has full support. So I'm going to take my asset here, I'm going to drag it in uAssetGUI, and it's going to pop up no problem. If you were to do that with any PC version uAsset, it would give you a pop-up box saying, hey, there's an error. I cannot present everything that you're looking for. I can only present you with a limited amount of data. And then you would go to export data, and it would show you like a truncated hex table. It would not show you everything I can see right here. And this is where the magic happens, and this is what eluded me for the longest time. So I was cannibalizing these emissive materials from other assets of the PC version, right? Well, with uAssetEditor, you can't see any of this shit. So you can't change the color. So I was adopting the programmed color of whatever emission that I was, taking, and applying that to my weapon mods. And if I happen to have tried adding a color to my emission, like here, when I was trying to make a dark dragon blade mod, this was my attempt at an emission texture. I have the red of this, but if the emission material that I was trying to use was borrowed from another object and that material was blue or something, then I'm likely gonna have a sort of purple emission in game or something else completely. I'm not too sure if that's exactly how it works. I tried this shit a lot, and I was expecting one color, and then I would get like chartreuse or like a bright yellow. I was getting shit that I did not expect and did not want. But it was thanks to serendipity and good luck that I crossed paths with some people in the OpenKH server that I discovered and heard about uAssetGUI. I had already acquired the PS4 version of 7 Remake years ago, and I still had it, and I found out that the PC version can still read the PS4 uAssets. I guess because at the end of the day, 418 is still kind of 418, even though it isn't. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But anyway, so in uAssetGUI, this part should look pretty familiar. Here's the path, character weapon, 00000, Cloudbuster Sword, emissive. Yep, this is the name of our emissive. And then at the bottom here, we have the material, and that's what we're using. And then we have the name of the emissive material, and that's what we're using as well. And then we would just go down here. I don't touch any of this until we get here. Here is the intensity. Right now it's set to 3000. I could probably turn that down to 2. And then we get to color. And I have it set to the same shade of green that Ever Crisis uses. And to do that, you have to input a number under value 2 and value 3. And this is red, this is green, and this is blue. And you can only go between 0 and 1. Now, how do you ascertain your RGB value when all you can do is punch in a number between 0 and 1? I mean, some of you probably already figured it out. So this is the Saber style coat from Ever Crisis. This is one of Cloud's costumes. So I'm going to use the eyedropper if I actually fucking select it. And then I'm going to just sort of select this green right here. And then I'm going to click on this right here. And then here's our RGB, 106, 249, and 206. I'm going to grab our calculator, and I'm just going to divide 106 by 255, and we have 0.41. So now I have uAssetGUI back. I could take 0.4 and plug that in there. And for the green, 249 divided by 255 is just about 1. And then 206 divided by 255 is 0.8. And then if I click out and then click back in, that green is a little lighter, but it's close to a match. You're just gonna take your RGB, divide it by the maximum value that you can have, which is 255, and then punch that value in. I suppose you could get really down to the 1000th or 10,000th if you really wanted to. But for all intents and purposes, I would just keep it to the tenths, man. Who gives a shit? I think at the end of the day, nobody's really going to tell the difference unless you're that much of a stickler. And then value 4 is your alpha, 1 is on, and 0 is off. With 1, you'll actually see your color, and with 0, you're not. It's going to be just white. Velocity color is if you actually have like a velocity intensity enabled, and I don't, and I have not really experimented with anything that involves velocity color, so I don't know shit about that yet. We'll see if I ever get into it, but that's it. I know my information in name map is good, so go to File, and then I hit Save. Back in my folder, uAssetGUI likes to create backups, so I'm going to delete my backup, and now I have that. Because I highly doubt the accessibility of the PS4 files are all that high, I'm going to post these emissive files on Nexus. Hopefully that will help some people out. I think we have everything here. So now's the moment of truth. We're going to take this, we're going to drag it over UnrealPak with compression. And then we're going to take our pack and drag it into mods. We launch. Okay, so nice. Looks good. Well, I do not see any fucking emission. Ah, motherfucker, the goddamn emission still isn't working. Son of a bitch. But other ones work, and I don't know why. Oh, really? Okay, well, this... there you go, then. Well, this is probably the fucking problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been all over the damn place. I have been looking at textures. I've been looking at uAssetEditor. It's because of the damn model. So in Blender, if you go up here at your overlays, click on this down arrow, you go down to face orientation, right? So the blue indicates your outward facing faces. All right, this is what you are supposed to see. This is everything that is facing out. Everything marked blue, you're supposed to see. Everything marked red, you're not supposed to see. Everything marked red is supposed to be inside. Well, look at the color of these materia slots. Look at the color of the fucking polygons of the faces that are supposed to be emitting. They're facing inside. So I bet you if I could have panned the camera around and somehow clipped inside the sword in game, the fucking things would have been emitting inside the sword. Oh my god. And it's on both sides. So I bet you somewhere along the lines I did an alt and recalculate. Oh my god, if I had just done that, then everything would have been fine. All I need to do now is just this and this and this and this and flip and do that, and then we'll turn this off so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Alt N, we'll do an average face area, turn this back on, make sure everything's good, and yeah, everything should be good. God, I can't fucking believe that shit. That is fucking infuriating. There are a lot of sharp edges on here as well, some of which do not need to be here. Thank you, God. There it is. Jeez. Yep. So that was our issue. The faces were in the wrong direction. Now we put some materia on top of it. And can't really tell that there's any emission behind it, but I bet if you were to make it like really bright, turn that intensity up really high, you could. But if we were to that, so yeah, that's as well. So that is probably the problem that some of my other replacement mods have, because I think 3 out of the 6 or 4 out of the 6 of my replacement mods that I have up right now, their emissions are broken for the same reason, I'm gonna guess. It's because the faces are jacked up. Part of my workflow now, as I'm starting to understand more and more of what I'm doing, is to recalculate the normals, and if I recalculate the outside faces, and I'm not paying attention exactly to what I'm doing, then I'm going to inadvertently flip outside faces to inside faces, and well, that's probably what I ended up doing. And now the Stream Saver is looking as it should. The edges are sharp, the metallic parts are shiny and reflective. What is supposed to be rough and flat is rough and flat. The emission looks good, but hopefully this does address some of the lingering questions out there in the community regarding a tough topic that for a long while and has been difficult for us to figure out. I think we might have a handle on it now. I'm looking forward to seeing what the community can come up with. And here's a good couple of examples of emission at work. Not too shabby. I think this is going to do it for me, everybody. If you learned something today, If this was helpful to you at all, please let me know. Leave a comment, and keep me clued in on what you might be cooking with this information. If it helps you develop something of your own, let me know, and I'd love to see what might be on the horizon for 7 Remake, and hopefully, considering Rebirth also uses Unreal Engine 4, hopefully we can carry this information forward and apply it to that when it comes to PC as well. Until next time, like, subscribe, and go outside.